All right, this is a attempt to detail some of the stuff that needs to be put in place together, whatever, all the different piece parts that have been worked on. This stuff that I'm showing here is all got different pages. This one's kind of old. It talks about jacktripservers.com. But I just want to go over the type of tasks that are going on in terms of the user flow. And I don't remember if I sent this before, but it's sort of like something I may have sent before. So the idea is just to show that a user, anybody, they'll actually end up at FastSpring. They'll go to musicianstogetherapart.com and click on a buy now link somewhere, and they'll get to FastSpring, right? And let me put that up here. So they'll get to FastSpring. Why does that not do what I want? Okay, FastSpring sends a curl or whatever they're doing. They're sending a webhook to cas.jacktripservers.com or cas.musicianstogetherapart.com, and we have this script that receives the webhooks from FastSpring, whatever those webhooks are. And I, in this case, showed it as a PHP script with a bunch of query string parameters, but actually, in the case of FastSpring, we know that it's going to be a post request without the query strings are not relevant except if when we're sending a webhook to WP webhooks. The idea is an administrative server has a subdomain with its own PHP script that receives the FastSpring webhooks. All right, and we already know that works. And then that will run through JQ, which I don't have on here, so ignore this other stuff. But the idea is central administrative server receives the FastSpring webhooks and runs the PHP script to pull out the data like the email address and maybe a name. And then that CAS, central administrative server, runs on Linode, but it's pushing stuff through its curl commands into a Green Geeks WordPress account, which we already have, which is the Musicians Together Apart. And in this diagram, I used the old name, jacktripservers.com. And then I wrote membership plugin in here, but really we're just creating a new user, and each user is going to have a personal page, and we may not need to use WP members. So just keep that in mind, that that's still to be determined. There's a lot more than what I'm showing here, so don't pay as much attention to what I'm saying, but the user is going to have a page from which they'll start the server, and then they'll get into eventually to that the control panel with the FPPQ value and all that stuff. Okay, so that was sort of older stuff. This is a newer version of the same thing with a little more, little bit more content that's more relevant to how we're doing today. So the other one was just sort of frame of reference of how I was originally seeing things, and then this is a bit more detail. So in this case, and I still have some old things named jacktripservers.com, but just assume those are musicianstogetherapart.com, which I'm also calling MTA.com for abbreviation. So in this case, I've got it where the user goes to not jacktripservers.com, but musicianstogetherapart.com to buy a subscription or prepaid hours for their own private Jacktrip server. Then, and I'm just looking at the top to the right here, moving right, they click on a buy now button on that page somewhere in the site, and then that buy now button hyperlinks them, takes them straight to a store, and the store is just a storefront within FastSpring, and I think FastSpring will name it something like, company name.fastspring.com. And in this case, it could be Jacktrip Servers, or it could be musicianstogetherapart.fastspring.com. And then from there, they'll actually do the purchase of monthly subscription or prepaid. Okay, so don't worry about the details in that, because that does add complexity, the fact that we're trying to offer two different things here. But those purple lines here are just indicating that both of these are to send a webhook when there's a purchase made, and the webhook goes to the CAS dot, in this case, musicianstogetherapart.com, and then a script, I'm calling it, the name of the script that we give to FastSpring to send the webhooks to, the URL is https://cas.jacktripservers.com/receive new order webhook.php, and when it receives it, it'll send back a 202 accepted. I wrote 202 okay here, but 202 accepted. And then it pulls out email address or whatever, and it uses the create user action in WP webhooks in a curl statement. And the idea there is it's going to get back the successfully created new user, and then we have just now then created a user in WordPress, and it's an actual WordPress user, right? And not necessarily a member within any membership plugin at this point. So just imagine it's a WordPress user, just like we're expecting, like we've done. Okay, and then that user is also going to get a new page created also with the webhooks curl command, and that new page will have it'll be like their launch page. I'm calling it launch page because they can launch the server from there, but it'll be their private Jacktrip server launch control page, and it'll be at a URL like members.musicianstogetherapart.com/page=135, or whatever the syntax is on the URLs for WordPress pages. Now, each person's launch page is actually going to have a short code that corresponds to this plugin called user specific content or something like that. So that doesn't need to be worried about too much at this point. We don't have to worry about privacy, but the idea is that when you have this short code embedded in a page or a post, the only person that's going to see the content between the start of the short code text and the end of the short code text, the content in between these two short codes is only visible to the person who's logged in if that short code corresponds to them specifically, something like that. So in this private Jacktrip server page, that is going to have their launch server button. Oh, and the other thing is, I think to keep the money and the actual sort of administrative stuff completely apart with a big separation between actual users, we should put the users on members.musicianstogetherapart.com and page 135. I forgot to say that before, but that means we'll have a WordPress site called musicianstogetherapart.com, and we'll have a central administrative server that receives the webhooks, and that'll be called cas.jacktripservers or cas.musicianstogetherapart.com. So, and then when that CAS runs the create new user, it's going to create them on a WordPress site. So WordPress site number 2, second WordPress site, members.musicianstogetherapart.com, creates the user on there. And again, this is so that we just have 3 separate things that are totally sort of completely separate from each other. One is the website with the enticement to buy. One is the CAS site to receive the purchases and handle administrative stuff with FastSpring, and then a completely separate site that is strictly for members to log in and launch their own server. So let's say we have this members.musicianstogetherapart.com page, and that will have gotten created after the user gets created with WP webhooks. That page will have something that says, "Welcome, Joe. Click the launch button to start your server." And I want to just make sure that we don't worry about the private content shortcode yet. So right now it's just about connecting the pieces, and then we'll make it private as a future event. Okay, so launch server will run a script, and maybe the script is called create private linode.php. Okay, And so that script is going to probably be located on the CAS server. And it'll run the CLI command, the linode CLI command, to create a new linode. And then the output of that command, when you run it, as we already know, it just sends back an IP address. And then what we can do with that is we can update the user's private page for a couple of things. One is we can tell them that we're launching the server, and we'll have an animated GIF there, because it takes a while for the server to boot up, probably about 2 minutes. So one thing is that as soon as that linode returns an IP address, we know that it's starting the boot. So we then can have that PHP script that took them from launch server and then, you know, ran the create new linode CLI command. When that script has done its thing and gotten the IP address, it'll bring people to a page that I'm calling the after clicking launch page. So after they click the launch button, the launch server button, and that's the one that's going to have a little message saying launching private server, and it's got a spinning animated GIF. And that page will just refresh every 10 seconds, just like the mTurk page refreshes to get the latest content from AWS mTurk. But in that refresh, it's going to use some other CLI command that queries whether the new linode is running yet. So theoretically, when we create the new linode, we'll not only receive the IP address, but we'll get a linode instance ID. And so there's another CLI command with linode that we'll have to query based on that ID as to whether or not that linode is in the running state. So I believe that's something that maybe we already tested. But once we find it is in the running state, then this animated spinning GIF thing goes away, and people will get redirected to a better control panel page. Okay, so that I'm saying is here. So after this new linode instance is running, we can give them all of their information, all their goodies from which to actually run the system with their Mac software or whatever, Raspberry Pi, whatever. Okay, so this one I'm sort of calling it an after boot complete or on running state page. Okay, and this could be the same page as we were doing before, but just some kind of refreshed content. I don't know, because we already made this page for the user, you know, page 135, let's say, that I had in the previous page example. So imagine that the people, you know, click on start server, and then it does some things to start the server, and then it waits and shows them a spinning, you know, status thing. And then the spinning status thing goes away, and when it's all ready and running, they get this information saying the server is live. That could potentially all be refreshed content just using the WP webhooks post update action. Not sure, but you could actually update the post that way. And in this case, post type equals page. So we're not talking about a post. The other thing is that we can put all of this crap into a curl command as long as we URL encode it and say post content equals. We can put shortcodes, we can put hyperlinks, we can put all this stuff that is on the left box here on this screen can all be inside of a URL encoded query string parameter. So that works. I sort of tested that. Okay, now if they eventually get to this page that says, you know, hey, your server is live, okay, they will have a thing that says click here to set the FPP value hub mode. I think before that, though, we would say the IP address for your server is, and then we put that at the top. They don't necessarily have to know that. It's just that they would have to send that to their friends to connect. But basically, it would be a hyperlink to this actual server page. That's the page that shows up when you just visit that IP address. And there they could do that. And then that page, on that page, by the way, we have update settings. So whatever it says right now, look at the video that I sent yesterday, because we do have a weird situation where if you update the settings with the submit button, it tries to refresh that. If you try to go back or something like that, it says, do you want to resubmit the form? So just keep that in mind. That video has another task related to this FPP config page, server config page. But anyway, we're going to have the update settings, the reboot server, and then another link that just goes back to the launch control, which is the box on the left. So that will allow the user to stop the server. So what happens, I'm going back to the left box here. They get, eventually they end up, after purchasing and after getting their private page created, and then they get a chance to click on start server. They get this thing, your server is live, here's the IP address. They also have a little message there that says, use this command in your terminal window to start the session, jacktrip -C with the IP address, -Q24, we say, example. And then a thing that says, email this command to others. So you could have that create an email address, an email with the content in there. Don't worry about creating the email, because that gets into some other formatting crap. But the idea is it would send an email either through the CAS server or through members.musicianstogetherapart.com or something. We can worry about the email functionality a little bit further in the path. It doesn't have to be super user-friendly like this. So anyway, while this server is running, they'll have a stop server button so that they can turn it off, and that's for the prepaid people mainly, so they don't keep using stuff. That stop server button could be reached with this, or this page with the stop server button could be reached if they're looking at their main FPP config control panel with a button that says return to launch control. And that would take them back to this page 135 in WordPress in members.mta.com. Okay, with the stop server button. And then the stop server button will go to the CAS server and cas.musicianstogetherapart.com and run another Linode CLI command strictly to delete the server that they launched with the start server or whatever earlier. And so the reason for the delete is because Linode doesn't have a function to stop a server. You can stop a server, but you'll still get billed for it. So we have to delete the server every single time that somebody wants to stop the server. And that's why the IP address is always going to get created new each time, because we won't be able to keep the same IP address each time they start and stop. So this will all be refined in the future, but for now, this is probably the easiest, only way to do it. So anyway, they're going to have a stop server thing while it's running. And then I believe that's the end of that. Let's see if I had any other pages. Nope, that was it. I was going to draw some other crap, and then I didn't. So that's the scoop. So we just, basically, it's all about tying all the pieces together with curl scripts, and then links between different sites, cas.musicianstogetherapart.com and members.musicianstogetherapart.com, and then the actual musicianstogetherapart.com website, which has got the link to the FastSpring storefront. And that's the actual thing where you click buy now or add to cart, and then you put in your credit card, and then FastSpring will send a webhook to cas.musicianstogetherapart.com. Okay. Now, probably this is enough for now, and there is another aspect to this, which is how can we get it launchable and testable without having FastSpring involved. So that'll be the next step, and that's got its own sort of path of making things work. But if we can get most of the items in here going, just the stop server and deletion and all that crap, and have it all triggered with a fake submittal of an order from FastSpring, and that fake submittal could just be that big, huge JSON payload coming in from the Mumbai server with a curl command. And then that says, oh, okay, somebody bought the server and their email address is this and their first name is that. And so I'm going to send this PDF right now, but for now, that's the video lecture of the day. Please make sure to take maximum notes, and there will be a quiz right around 5:30 p.m. IST. Thank you very much. Now, how do I stop this damn thing? Okay.